I think a lot of these like economies of scale questions and everything else have come up. So that project started in June of last year and took 11 months to break ground. In that time frame, we were able to get 16 MOUs from the local governments to participate in the process. That actually happened in the first 2 months, and they contributed up to 8.5% of their ARPA funds to the COG, who held onto that to cover what I would consider broccoli costs. And so the broccoli costs, what the goal was is, and I'll be real blunt, I don't think building housing is hard. It's everything before that, after the foundation, or before the foundation. The house is easy. Yeah, you can actually, any builder that's competent can build you a house. It's everything that happens before that. And actually, I had one developer who applied, or was thinking about applying, and said, I'd actually rather have a colonoscopy than to try and pull building permits across those 10 communities. And I said, well, what happens if I take the colonoscopy? He's like, well, then maybe I'll apply. But in the process of covering broccoli costs, we did 7 major subdivisions. We did 4 infrastructure upgrades to sewer and water mains and electric. And we got all that done in 11 months because of the local government and the regional collaboration. Every one of the municipalities was on board and was patient with working through their processes. We didn't ask for waivers or any of those types of things, but we were able to get 127 sites ready for vertical construction. We broke ground last week in Albany Springs, and a perfect example of regional collaboration is Albany Springs was struggling to get the water and sewer taps done as fast as now the concrete guys are busting through because they're fast. And the county actually stepped in, and the road and bridge crew is there today because of regional collaboration, because they know how important the project is to ensure that it's done and that the water and sewers are being done, because without the water and sewer being in, we can't get the initial rough-in plumbings, which would delay the next 9 communities on the timeline. The really cool thing about that project, 2 things. The reason that we were able to get housing that was priced at $199,000 for a 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,200 square foot house was twofold. One, it didn't matter to the region, all 16 local governments, how many units that they were getting in their community. What mattered to them that there was going to be at least 1 unit built in each of their communities. And for instance, Kim is a great example. 2 new houses in Kim would be a game changer, right? That's the same thing in Eaves, which is 3 houses, or in Walsh, which is 1 house. But what really was important is that it also established a market comp for those communities to actually have a new house built. So now there's an actual appraisal that can come in, and now a local can actually go and build a house because they actually have a comp that isn't $70,000 which is a more normal comp. Actually, you can't even buy the lumber and the materials for a $70,000 house anymore, as we've discussed. But the really two kind of regional collaboration things that I would share with this group is, one, the local governments didn't care about who got what, and in fact, everyone actually said, because the smaller communities in our ARPA funds that they got were much less than, for instance, a county. No one community had to put in more than 8.5%. So they all agreed that 8.5% would be the limit for any one community's contribution. Some of the larger counties only put in like 2 or 3% because that was fair. That was what we needed to cover the back end of the budget, which was $617,000. The second thing is economies of scale. I think when you talk about how do you set up so many units, et cetera, to build, that was actually how we delivered the pricing that we were able to do at 83 units. And in fact, because we had taken care of all the broccoli costs and I had taken a colonoscopy for everybody, we actually had an opportunity zone investor come in and invest in 64 rental units. They actually were originally one of the developers, and after seeing the process, I actually had a margarita at the Cherry Creek, whatever it is, nice restaurant with the opportunities investor, and they signed the contract that day because everything was taken care of. All they had to do was purchase the housing units on the back end from the builder that was building them, and they had set pricing. So that opportunity zone investor and the $13 million of housing they bought is allowing all the locals in the other communities who are buying into the housing and getting a new house to take advantage of that. So that's kind of that project in a very round nutshell that was. Sounds really romantic.
8.5%.
Sorry?
8.5%.
American Rescue Recovery Act.
So that was the money that each county received, or each
That
municipality.
was, they received 100%, right?
Right.
And so they only were required to put 8.5, up to 8.5.
Of their allocation of the ARPA money.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was the largest community size that,
It would either be Prowers or Otero County, and they only put in 4%.
but the individual community, what was the largest one of these?
The largest building we have is 24 units in Springfield.
Wow. That's expensive.
Yeah, Springfield is a game changer.
Are those units sold or?
They're all under contract. We do not build a single spec house. Well, actually, I take that back because several of the counties actually are building spec houses, but they're under contract. So there's a couple counties that decided to build a couple additional units in different communities so that they're there. But everything, this was a for sale model, so everything had to be under contract before the construction finance. And then the developer is responsible for construction financing. So the noose is the person whose noose is in the head with the bank is the builder or the developer, none of the local governments. And then how we protect the local governments is through a surety, an executable letter of credit that for the price of the land cost. So, and then the bank, who is the construction lender, signed off on an option agreement that if the builder defaults, we can go back and use the executable letter of credit to buy back the land. We actually had to transfer the land. The biggest risk from the whole project is all development has risk. The biggest risk is we had to transfer all the land assets to the developer. So over the last 11 months, that's what SECED is Stephanie Gonzalez, who I will without a doubt say, without her, this project doesn't happen, so I'm not at all taking credit for all of this. She was instrumental on all of this. But SECED first took title of all those land assets, and then we did one final closing with the developer where we transferred it with the option and the surety.
When you say they take defining what a land asset is, I'm showing my ignorance here, but what's that?
It's a in-town lot that has all utilities ready to go.
And how did they bought it from a private owner?
We bought it from private owners. We had Los Angeles, the city of Los Angeles is a great example. Benton County owned a next to their health and human service resources. They had a small t-ball field, and then the remainder of the whole city block was vacant. And we actually built like an L around that field, and SCED went through the major subdivision process with the city, subdivided the land, and installed a sewer main. And we made those ready, and then they transferred it to the COG.
And those that purchased those properties, those houses, certain AMI on that, or?
Nope, because we didn't take any money from anybody. We didn't have to play by any rules. What I will say though is that there is a difference between there is a big difference between that Florida State and even Los Angeles and La Vida or Larkno. I wouldn't do that model without deed restrictions here. And the reason the reason we had to do that model without deed restrictions out there is because the appraisals were already risky by bank standards as they are. If I would have slapped a deed restriction on there would have been no underwriting for that. In fact, just to give you an idea, the $200,000 house to actually within affordability, I could add another $100,000 to that house and it would still be within 100% AMI. So we're building the 60% and 80% AMI, but we did not, and it's just, that's 100% predicated on the fact that you can't go on a restricted house and stuff.
What was the time frame from the beginning of all that process?
We started I presented a feasibility study in June, and we broke ground in May of last year.
So you did it during the pandemic with global supply chain issues.
The only thing that has me really scared right now is in Springfield, I need some transformers. You happen to have some. You guys have an electric department? Huh? Yeah. No, that's the only supply chain hurdle we haven't run up against. But we have enough. We've been able to find enough transformers in the region to get 10 power on site so the construction can continue.
From the time your buyers went under contract to closing, what's that average time frame?
It's 9 months for the average buyer. The construction is 5 months for us. And we built. And then the other thing I would say is the other big piece is density. I think for rural Colorado, everyone gets density with multifamily, like big multifamily projects. Density in rural Colorado is a duplex.
Right, yeah.
And I really mean that. And what's important about a duplex is that you can subdivide it along a 2-hour firewall and it's still a single family home loan. But what it did was for the opportunity zone investor, it bought down the price of each of the ones of opportunity zone investor by $40,000 a unit.
Yeah.
And so it really made it a screaming deal for the opportunity zone investor. It was actually, according to her, it was like the easiest thing she's ever done. It was buying me a margarita. But I mean, it was. But at that point, those local governments made it so that the opportunity zone investor couldn't say no, right? And then the only other thing I'll say, and this holds true to this morning, is between the builder and the local governments, there's never been a roadblock or a hand up saying like, no, you can't do that. It's how can we do it? For instance, in Albany Springs, there was a setback issue on the front setback, but it was because the subdivision when it was originally platted this huge strip of unusable land, and they came back and said, we're going to give you a subdivision waiver so that we don't have to have these massively long driveways that we can't maintain. So that's that. I'm sorry that I have to leave at 1, otherwise I would have waited patiently.
Congratulations, that's an amazing project.
You know, I was gonna mention that here recently, there was a developer that wanted to build, I think it was 34 units. They went into CHAFA 49% tax credit, which they asked me to testify on behalf of. I felt we went in with a pretty good process of what we needed and how we would get there. And unfortunately, we're not successful for whatever reason, but I thought we had a pretty solid package going. The big thing is that we hear a lot of times that with CHAPA, a lot of times the first time that you apply, you don't make it. As a matter of fact, that happened to us with the Space Degree project here in Trinidad. It took 2 times before we were able to come up with that 9% tax credits. But we were hoping that because of our needs that we had, that we would have been more successful. So I don't know where they're at right now, because they're saying it'd be another year before they can apply. I don't know if that's true or not. So these are issues.
This is for
that
the LIHTC?
Yes.
Did you guys bundle your project with somebody else's? Did you do
No.
scatter site?
It
You're
was all
alone?
one, it was all one project. It wasn't us, it was a developer.
It's the art space, right? They
No,
actually,
well, this one up here was the art space.
Okay.
This one is a different project that just came about about 2 months ago. Yeah, they asked me to present with the company because I knew the needs of the community.
right. Well, I'm not sure what to say about that project specifically, but I do think that that's a huge area for regional collaboration. So those scatter site projects where you can combine, looking at the LIHTC projects and how you can combine them as a region makes them much more competitive with CHAFA. I think there's also an opportunity, I don't know if everybody's tracking this, but the new market tax credits, apparently Colorado will be listed as an underserved community in the coming year. And so we'll suddenly be able to access investors nationally instead of just from our Colorado pool. So if we can get projects into the new market tax credit, which is more the commercial side, and then the LIHTC is more the housing side. But we've been talking with a group called SB Clark that actually helps you get your projects lined up for both of those. It's actually funny, it's a family business and there's 2 twin daughters and one does LIHTC and one does new market tax credit. But it's kind of a cool resource, and I'd be happy if you guys would like to talk more with them about how to drive those projects and how competitive you can be.
We have one project that I know is upcoming. The guy wants to build 94 units. And supposedly he has the money to do it already, but I don't, I'm not sure. He has some hoops that he's got to go through with the city yet. But it is, I talked to him yesterday and he's still working on it. But I'm not sure if he's looking for anything to help him in the long run. I don't know.
So is there, and we were talking a little bit about kind of the beautiful back and forth between, here are our 2 case studies of people who are trying to invest and then talking with the people trying to develop the incentives. Are there other venues where those folks that are trying to get stuff done in the community have projects and are just looking for different resources? Is there a venue? Is there a place where they can all come together and do the communities have a place where they can respond to them kind of in group, transparently, and with standards? Maybe that's something else to consider.
Wally, would that be something that maybe you can do through your economic development? Would that be kind of your?
Possibly. Tell me a little bit more about examples of venues.
Well, if I may.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking because I thought it was a really good dialogue when Gabe and Karen were talking about their developments and their challenges, and then here they had people right here in the room that were saying, oh, well, did you think about this, or did you do that? Something where it's kind of like an open house where you would have maybe a panel, like someone from economic development, someone from zoning, someone from maybe SCED, or CHAFA, or someone from the city, someone from COG, and then we would just open it up to developers or owners or something.
I feel like we have done this with our housing forums, correct?
We have had several forums, yes.
Yeah.
Kind of brought all those people in, but the next step, that's what I was talking
comes
about,
to it?
goals moving forward,
Yeah.
how do we keep that momentum, so.
I think
Well, I
you
mean,
need
that's not
you need
a-
to have someone with boots on the ground internally somewhere. I guess that's what you're talking about, where the developer can go to and say talk to you or somebody else.
So
Yeah,
that
and-
has the answers.
So that's what we tried to do with the train depot in Walsenburg, was to create a one-stop shop where we had the building department, the planning and zoning department, economic development, all in the same building. It was fine until the city decided we need that space, so then they kicked us out during COVID. And then, and so this is the city, this is the way the city works together with other people.
Well, and for me, I think the question is, yeah, we can have the space, but do we have those answers?
Exactly.
How do we get educated to have all these answers?
Yeah,
That's what
exactly, because we have had these housing forums, and we have brought people from CHAFA, across the board, to provide insight and to try and answer questions, but we didn't have the tools at our resource to actually do anything to help at that point, other than to just add that input.
So-
Now we have these incentives, or hopefully soon we will have these incentives, where it's something we can at least have an answer to something. What can the city do to help move this forward? But when we had these forums in the past, it was just okay, great, these are these programs, they don't work for me, what else? Yeah.
So when you said that they were developed, they were all in the same house, in the train depot, was that mean all the departments were there? So
Yes.
someone comes in, I need a building permit, I need a business license, I need a thing, and they just come to this one spot,
Yeah,
it's like
for-
we can route.
For the county, what we tried to do is to get the city to
Yeah.
put their building official in there as well. Didn't work. But that ideally,
That,
if you only have to have one if everybody's on the same codes.
right.
Right?
Yeah.
But with everybody on different codes, you need a representative for each entity
Yes.
in that building.
And then looking in Nevada, because Washington County just implemented that, and they negotiated with the city, they managed to do that, and they had it with state, so it's a one-stop portal. Like, you come in, and it's even the database is the same. Like, I go in it, it's called SOS, which is the Secretary of State, and you can renew your business license, you can check on your building permit, I mean, it's all there, and it's city, county, it's all merged. I'm gonna look up what it's called, but anyways.
And I
what else
wanna
do I say?
go back to
Can
something.
I just add one
Oh,
quick
yeah.
thing?
Yeah.
So I think what you're saying, and I think what we're all saying, is you can have the meetings, but unless you have someone who can facilitate the conversation and follow up, therein lies the problem. Because we all have a million things that we're doing. For me, I can facilitate my own project, but how do we get the biggest bang for our buck? And the difficulty, especially in Walsenburg and Orfano County, there's not one person that you can go to with the background and the knowledge to be able to even direct you to the right people. You know what I'm saying? Whether it's local codes or city, county, state codes. So I think long-term, and for lack of a better term, truly a facilitator that has, or at least the background knowledge to be able to know how to obtain the right information and then stay on track to follow up with these things would be hugely.
Do
So,
banks,
and
do
I'm-
banks get involved with something like that? Because a lot of times they have the knowledge of some of these funds.
They should, right? And they are revisiting the Community Reinvestment Act, which has been a huge failure, right? Like, the Community Reinvestment Act was supposed to be the way banks are reinvesting in the communities where they work. It has been a big failure, and they're diving back into that, I think, at the national level to see what's gonna happen next. But I hear a couple of different things. And going back to what Michael Yerman said, with that partnership, he said 16 entities signed an MOU. They made a formal agreement for collaboration, and they committed to certain things, right? So, whether it be like the city of Walsenburg pulling out, or, somebody else pulling out, or circumstances change, I think having a formal agreement to collaboration and thinking about what you all are willing to commit to is an important step, right? I also think the follow-through piece, right? So having that formal commitment, so yes, we're agreeing to be a business-friendly community, or we're agreeing to try and get housing, or, whatever that is for you. But having a formal agreement, I think, is a really important step. I think, too, the idea of co-locating and putting information in one pool so that people don't have to go a million places to get it. And then there's the follow-through. So there's like the overall governance and sort of a commitment piece, then there's the data piece, and then there's the action piece. And so that's a nice sort of stair step of things that we can work on to make change. But I think it's going to be a little bit of a heavy lift, and it's not like, it's not like this is the only region, but I've seen a lot of people not get along here. And so we just need to kind of figure out how to push that issue to the top and make it fly. And I think, this is not an open community forum, but the people who are here today, you guys are the people who have the ability to make that change. So, with the exclusion of there's nobody representing Walsenburg City. But we'll get them. We will get them.
You were invited.
Exactly. They were definitely invited,
It's
but
gonna be the right thing.
but so what do you guys think about that as being sort of a pathway, at least in terms of kind of getting through the regulation and the expertise? Does that sound useful?
So I think what you're saying is we need to get the city of Trinidad, County, Orfano County, Walsenburg, basically the administrators or whatever in the room,
Yeah.
sit down and see how they want to try to figure out to work together. Is that, to me, that's what it sounds
Yeah.
like. this
That
meeting
is
was about.
exactly what I'm saying, and I think there's other entities, right? Like your urban renewal authorities, they actually, I think, should be at the table because they're, in my mind, at least in the cities, they're a big piece of the implementation pie, right? And especially in Walsenburg, like if that urban renewal authority could be brought to sort of understand processes, and I know it's the same city council, right? They are the board. But yeah, so there's a couple of different ways we can approach that, and we can kind of map out what some of those ideas are, and then send that back to you all to get your feedback, and we can talk about it at our next meeting. But I think that would be a huge step forward.
Would you say though, to start off, rather than bring so many people in, just have like the ones that I mentioned to sit down to begin the conversation? And then they could reach out to the Churas, or the urban renewal authorities or other entities, and then bring them in on a second meeting. That way at least the 4 different organizations that I'm talking about would have come to some minor agreement to begin the conversation.
I think that'd be a great first step. What do other people think? Because I don't count really.
So
If
I
it,
think,
if it was possible, would we be able to invite Michael to give maybe an overview of how the southeastern region did it?
he's been in the community.
He has been, but I mean, in this forum, has he been to all 4 so they're all aware? Okay.
So I think the challenge, and I'll speak sort of for part of Orfano County, I think there's a level of distrust intergovernmentally, first of all. Second of all, I think, fortunately for you guys, you have that collaboration between the governmental entities. And I think to be able to get Orfano and the city of Walsenburg together is going to require someone else to moderate and facilitate the conversation that can drive home the importance of this collaboration. And it's someone independent of those 2 entities. And if it comes from private developers, then that's where it needs to come from. You guys are effectively strangling this community, and how do we address that?
Well, the other entity that I'm thinking we should be there, because COG brought this meeting together, and I think the director of COG should be at that table to start with.
So somebody who is not here, and I don't know if they were invited, is our Trinidad Housing Authority. Sounds to me like a regional housing authority, one-stop shop might be something to think about.
Walsenburg's Housing Authority has sold multiple of their units, individual units, with the intent of having cash assets to be able to then do a multi-unit development. So, they're going to be facing the same issues that private developers are with trying to get through zoning and everything else, so.
And they've been in the conversation, Gabe.
Right, I know they have, but what I'm saying is, we can't lose sight of
Sure.
that, so.
Hey, John, so being that, like you're saying, like she was saying, is that there's that distrust between the 2 government agencies working in the county. How would you imagine, and to bring them together to actually sit down at the table and say, guys, we gotta do something?
What if the meeting requested was from DOLA?
I think that's where it would have to come from.
And was held in Walsenburg with the city, and so they had to be there.
I think if the council of governments and the Department of Local Affairs jointly combine that, I think that's a pretty good start. And I would sit out. Because I'm pretty sure that they perceive me as the boogeyman.
I'm pretty sure that's the case.
Well, but
Shake
that
your
doesn't
beer,
resolve
you know.
anything, because you're still a representative as the county commissioners. That doesn't, the elephant's gotta be in the room.
Right.
So, I'm gonna call you on that, John. Your butt's gotta be in the seat, and everybody has to get past that, or that community will never get past that.
Are you chair of the county commission?
No, I'm not. No. And it doesn't bother me, but
Well-
whatever it takes to make it work, I'm okay with that. I don't have a problem with it.
All the players have to be in the room, have got to be in the room.
Once you guys figure that out, you let us know. We'll be there once you guys figure out your issues.
I think
Do
for
you
our
think-
community, we have to get past that
Yes.
before we can sit down with,
That's what I'm saying.
yeah.
Do you think there's social capital in having the city of Trinidad also reach out to the city of Walsenburg?
No.
No?
They don't trust them either.
Neutral, it's neutral.
It's,
Right.
no, yeah.
Okay.
They don't
All
trust
right.
each other either.
their own shadow.
Well, so anyway, I think thinking about formal collaboration, bringing in another case study, maybe led by COG and DOLA. All right, now, in terms of getting all of the data in the same place, right? Like the processes, what are the steps? I think we have over here like the idea of a checklist from the state, a checklist from federal requirements. Do you guys have that for what you require locally, or is this going to come out of the IHOP grant? I think it would come out of that
guarantee you
IHOP
we
grant.
don't have it.
Yeah, I think you don't, but the IHOP could provide it.
Well, and so to what we were just talking about, I mean, the IHOP grant, and am I correct, was for Werfenau, Walsenburg, and Levita?
Yeah.
It was
We
also.
think.
Mhm.
I mean, it
It
seems
was.
to me that's a place to start to push this conversation to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna say force, to push it and to Gay's earlier point, I think that what I hear from the city, from past and current members of planning and zoning, from the council, generally is they know they need a comprehensive plan, they know they need their code fixed, updated, and they know they're just spot patch fixing things. So I think if you use that as the carrot, that can be hopefully the way to start it. And then loop in with Trinidad because there's a place for collaboration on that project. And then go from there, I would hope.
What?
I think that's a great point, and it kind of goes to with that IHOP grant, they
Yeah.
have to show their plan going forward in order to get infrastructure money, which is the main goal of the city.
Yep.
I think, wasn't there was one document where everyone collaborated on, was it the, oh my goodness, it was even with New Mexico, I believe. It's escaping me now.
I'm sorry, what?
There was a, go ahead.
We're on that one.
Are you talking
Raton
about the
Basin
set?
set.
Yeah,
What is it?
Raton Basin set.
the Raton
stronger
Basin set, and I know that's a couple of years removed, but there was a point where everybody was at the table to have these conversations. Is there a way we can get back to that as even like a check-in to see where we are, or update, as well as a complement with some of these other resources, just to bridge the gap, or is that not really worthwhile? That you feel like as a good tool?
So everybody who was involved in that is gone except Lori and I.
Fair.
So, I think it would have to,
So we're starting over in this
yeah, I think
these
we're starting over,
relationships.
because really that one, I mean, the end result of that was a broadband plan. That was really the end result of it. Would you agree?
Okay. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. That helps make sense.
Okay. All right, so given our time is running out, okay, so I think we need to investigate that further and push through what that collaboration looks like. in terms of streamlining our information and processes, I think the IHOP and thinking about those RFQs and when you're confirming with a consultant, making sure that it's going to include a checklist, like, yes, we're going to review what's required, we're going to make our recommendations, and then creating almost like a checklist that can then be shared out, because that would be something that would go right in line with that process. But also thinking about the idea of developer forums and having that regular time, whether it be similar to housing forums, where you can bring together people who want to do projects with the people who incentivize the types of things that push forward the community vision, right? And then the last piece is the follow through, which would potentially be our economic development team, right? Our urban renewal team. And then we need to think about who's going to represent unincorporated people in the counties, right? Because the folks that have a town or a city supporting them are in a different boat than the gardeners of the world, right? So maybe that can be kind of our next steps in thinking through the economic development side. Does that sound good? Right. Well, I feel like we've really covered a lot of ground. I don't know about you. But as I said, this is the beginning. This is the beginning. And having the housing authorities will really take us further. We sort of started off with a very small group that was outlined. And so this was our first group, first time adding to that. But we'd love to continue adding and eventually having more of like a bigger public event that we might do coming soon. But our upcoming dates are on June 27th, there's a broadband meeting that Derek from Bohannon, Houston has been planning. Carlton, you're on that, right?
I am now.
Okay, we're going to make sure that you get that. He's been reaching out to other folks who we know were interested in that. I know that that's a primary topic for Phil from Los Animas and other folks. So if you want, we'll send out the information, links to sign up to attend any of these things. We'll also send you guys a summary of what we talked about today, all of our contacts, all of that to go with. The county roundtables, we'll be trying to look at those maybe in July. And then our next full group meeting of this group will be July 27th. But in the meantime, we'll be following up. So we're going to send you all the follow-up from this, and we'll be thinking about some small groups. But it does seem to me like starting this process and maybe having a meeting with the COG and DOLA and the powers that be in Huerfano County would be good. And then maybe thinking about, well, locking in that IHOP, the IHOP grant and that process, and then sharing the RFQs from the IHOP, getting those things moving forward so that we'll have the results of that study.
I got a question. That June 27th meeting on the broadband,
Yeah.
is that going to be virtual or is it going to be in person?
Virtual.
Or is it going to be
Virtual.
virtual? Now, here's the thing, is I know we attended a meeting here a while back. Is it going to be the same thing? Because, I mean, we had that meeting. in
Oh, from the
Walsenburg.
broadband office, talking about the
The
loop?
broadband office people, some of them were
No.
there that day. But, I mean,
No, this one is different, and Derek could chime in, but I believe this is really thinking about how you as a region can be most competitive with broadband. Is Derek on?
Yep, I'm here.
Oh, hey Derek. Do you want to give a little overview of what you plan to cover on the 27th?
Sure. So it is very region specific. So the high level idea is to think through, okay, what's been going on, what's currently in process, what are people working on, that type of thing, pairing it up with a kind of overall view of all of the types of different funding opportunities that are out there that we know of. Some of the state broadband office stuff is included in there. We're also pulling in Region 10's broadband implementation guy, Corey Brendel, to talk a little bit about technical assistance that he can provide through that that opportunity. We also have Sked. Sked's gonna come in and talk a little bit about their broadband efforts. But generally having kind of a similar conversation that you guys have been having around housing, but like, okay, what's the next step? What are some actionable strategies we can work from? How do we get the region coordinating instead of piecemeal efforts, that type of thing, to really come out of this with another facet of the roadmap plan with some strategies in this realm as well. So again, open to anybody and everybody that is interested in attending. We pushed it out to the original working group. I want to say about a month and a half ago. I got a few hits, so I think that group right now is only seeing about 15, 18 people. But whoever's interested, I'm happy to send out the link and make sure that you can participate if you want to participate.
The reason why I bring it up is, like I said, we've already had some collaboration. We have some set aside money for broadband for the city of Trinidad. And we're actually in the process of trying to find a consultant to develop broadband.
Okay.
So
I do have several people. I heard Trinidad come up. I couldn't quite hear what you just said, but there are several folks from Trinidad planning to attend.
Derek, they have money set aside for broadband, and they're currently trying to find a consultant to help them work on it.
Okay. Well, pairing that up with some Region 10 support could be helpful as well. So
let me know
Okay.
any details on the meeting.
Yes, we'll send out. So after this meeting, we'll send links to all of these things. If you all want to sign up to attend the regular monthly meetings, if you want to contact any of us for anything at all, we're available. But also we'll get the next meeting dates, and it may not be immediately, but we'll have a summary of everything that we talked about and just get your feedback on that. Including next steps. And then we'll be following up with different folks from within the conversation to just sort of see how things sit with you and if there are other thoughts that you've had after the call, after the meeting, so that we can plan for that next meeting and keep this moving. Our goal is to snap it along. But anyway.
And not let it die on a shelf.
Yes, yeah. So the other thing that I did want to push forward is that Weirfield County is going to meet with the Technical Assistance for Brownfield Group. They did just get a big EPA grant to do brownfield stuff, and so that's for the whole county. I believe Trinidad also just got, you also got EPA, right? Mm-hmm. And so I would love to help. I don't know if Los Angeles is included in that, but
Yes.
Okay, so if you guys are, then we have, there's this great resource through Kansas State University, and they will help you investigate all of those sites and put together pre-development marketing plans so you can look at, what would be the costs of redevelopment. And I think this can be useful both with engaging new developers, but also telling people who own properties that there may be a lot of costs involved with what they're doing. So if they're sort of speculating that their property is worth a lot, but it probably needs a lot of work, then this might help get on the same page, is one of the goals of that. And so I'd love to set something up with Los Animas to talk to them as well. Would that be helpful? And Trinidad and Los Animas we can do together. Okay.
Yeah, it would be.
Sweet.
Oh, I think we already know where our sites are. I'll leave it at that.
Well, the good thing is that they can go deeper into what the needs are for whether it be housing or it be economic development initiatives on any particular site. So hopefully
How
that
about all
will.
of the above?
Hmm?
How about all of the above?
Right? And the trick is they have money and they do it as a grant. So I've been really liking this service because it sort of feels like it's free. Anyway, all right, so that is, we'll include the list of stuff that they can offer, and we'll help you guys set up those meetings. Anything else?
I think this was a really good conversation. I'm very pleased.
Good.
Where is the meeting on July 27th?
That would be by Zoom. But, if you all want to get together, don't let us keep you from getting
I
together.
was just wondering if we were going to put Walsenburg in the hot seat. and do it there.
Right, we could do it in town hall.
We might be technologically challenged, we don't have a Tom.
Oh yeah, maybe Tom would come.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Tom's not available. We're gonna give Tom an MOU. All right. Well, thank you all for your time and your energy, and we're really excited to be working with you. And I will keep on pushing. So.
Thank you.